Hello and welcome to,
Hey, we like your pod.
and we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I'm joined as always by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett. But this week we also have a guest, our trusted guest, Andrew Mertig. Welcome, Andrew. It's so good to see you.
Thank you so much. First of all, that intro, fire. That was the best intro I have seen across all of Packers media. Take that, Tyler Herrick.
Wow. We'll take,
And
yeah,
also,
thank you.
I think there's something wrong with the stream. Like, why is there so much forehead here?
Yeah, it's a StreamYard problem. It's a known issue they're working on.
Okay,
So,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. I was starting to think maybe I was losing my hair or something.
No,
That's terrible. I
no.
should have worn a hat.
I should have worn a hat. I'm having a bad hair day too. Lorenzo is excited, Andrew, to see you because he wants to hear all about the draft. Lorenzo, as promised, we're talking about the draft with Andrew and Matt tonight.
Both of us, all of us. It's great.
We're all talking about the draft. I wish I could say what I just did right prior to going on live, but it's secret because you're going to have to see about that on the Pack-A-Day Listener Mock Draft Edition, which is what, Saturday? What day is that coming
Wednesday.
It'll actually be next Wednesday.
Oh, okay. You just need
We keep switching the dates.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. And hello to Iowa Joe. Nice to see you.
Hey, Joe.
Okay. I'm going to ask you guys, how are you doing? How was your day? But I'm going to tell you about mine first. Because I'll forget. This is the only reason. And then I'm just going to shut up for another hour. So I walked to the pet store. We have like this little kind of boutique kind of pet store. And Tosh has to have imported food and all that crap. So I had to go pick it up, special order, blah, blah, blah. And so I wanted to get some exercise. And so I walked there and came home with it. It was 11 pounds, which isn't that much, but when you're walking a mile and a half, it's like I had to stop.
Yeah. It gets heavier with every step, right?
But I did it. So on the way in that like shopping center, there's a Spectrum. Do you guys have Spectrum where you live? It's wireless internet type of stuff. Yeah. So there's a Spectrum store, and I popped my head in there and I said, hey, do you just do mobile phones or do you do internet? Because I've been having some internet issues and I was thinking of going back to Spectrum. And they're like, completely had nothing to do. It was two guys working in there. So I went in there and they were all helping me out. One of the guys wanted to know all about the cat food, checked out the ingredients on the bag. It was one of those things, it was a good break for me. So as I was walking out, I saw a car parked. And I noticed it had a Green Bay Packers license plate holder. It was very tasteful. It wasn't really obvious. I'm really surprised I even saw it. It was just embossed. It wasn't colorful or anything. And so I walked out and I saw that and I walked back in and they're like, yes. And I was like, is that your car? And they were all nervous. And I said, because he said something about being a Marine. I said, the one with the little Marine badge. And he said, oh, yeah, that's my car. Brian, if you're listening, we have a new listener, by the way. So shout out to Brian.
Hey,
so
Brian.
I was like, oh, because go Pack, go. And he came running up to me, he was at the back of the store. It's a big store. He goes running up to me. I thought he was going to give me a hug, and I was like high-fiving him and stuff. We had a really fun conversation about the draft, but his story is interesting. This is my whole superlative for the night. His story is interesting because he was telling me how he was a Chargers fan, which a lot of people out here would be as, San Diegans. But he felt so betrayed because a lot of people, followed their fandom to LA because not that far. But some some Chargers fans are really miffed. And because I said, how did you become a Packer fan? Of course, right? And so he
Mhm.
told me about his whole Chargers journey and how he picked the Packers. And that's his team now forever. Forever and
Wow.
ever. Yes. So welcome to the clan, Brian from Carlsbad.
So if the mayor of Green Bay ever kicks the Packers out of Green Bay, we have to pick a new team. That's how that works, right? We have to have a whole new team, and maybe we would have to pick the Chargers to kind of like balance the equation overall. I think that's how that works. I think those are the rules actually. So
It could be. It could
if you're
be.
listening, mayor of Green Bay, just don't do it. Don't do it.
He's not
Mayor
going
Grinch.
to do that.
There it is. I couldn't think of his name. Yeah. I don't think he
Grinch?
can
It's
do
not
that.
happening.
He can't really do that. It's not really a thing. Yeah.
Mayor Grinch?
You know, it's Genrich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Eric
Okay.
Genrich.
We'll
So
call him Grinch.
I don't know if maybe people are not familiar with this. The Packers very nearly left Green Bay in the mid 90s, late 90s ish. If the stadium renovations had not been approved, they probably would have been forced to leave by the NFL.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
everybody just takes for granted, right? Like there's 3 times the people on the waiting list that the stadium holds, and there's 2 season ticket lists, and now it's so entrenched in Green Bay and the Titletown district, and they're doing so well financially. But at one point, I mean, the stadium was a dump, and in major need of renovations, and the NFL really did not want the Packers to stay in Green Bay unless the stadium was going to get redone. So, be thankful for the Brown County taxpayers for saving the day.
Yay, Brown County.
The real heroes. Absolutely.
Right. It is something we sort of take for granted. So, how was your day, Andrew? What's up with you out here in San Diego?
Yeah, really good. I started a new job about 2 months ago, and so work's been busy, but in a really good way. Right now, you mentioned we have the Pack-A-Day listener mock draft coming up for next week. We started really early this time, so I know both of you are involved, and that's really exciting. But every time I got a break from my work today, I was checking and updating our doc, and there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into it. It makes me just very much appreciate the people in the NFL headquarters who have to process draft day trades and keep track of this stuff, because I'm not no big deal if I miss something. I can always go back, but at the same point, it's a lot of administrative work.
Yeah, no doubt. And with just all the people in the group chat kind of coming in back and forth and stuff, it's very active. It's very active.
Yes, it is. It is. I thought I saw somebody say something like, could we have a separate group chat for something else? And I was like, oh, I don't think he realizes how much work goes into this, like having another chat. Yeah.
I mean, y'all are welcome to. I feel like I'm straining the relationship with Maggie and Kyle by adding them into the group chat and seeing how many notifications they get. So we always spend the first 10 to 15 minutes before we start the episode just debriefing how funny the group chat was for the listener mock draft. So
it's so fun. It's so fun.
And there's always some insanity that ensues, and this year I would expect no different.
So, Andrew, last time you were on here, you were just about to move. I think you were talking to us from your empty apartment or something. You had a chair.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you mentioned now that you have a fairly new job that you're at. So, what are you doing at this point?
Yeah, so I am still working in college, student recruitment. So outreach into the high schools and, all of that. So that's been my professional life for give or take 10 years at this point. Just a different institution, different role. So that part's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Keeps me on my toes. Get to pretend like I'm young,
Rolling up like Steve Buscemi with your skateboard and your backwards hat.
Yeah, that's a lot of it, really.
Yeah. Big part of the job.
Especially out here.
Well, speaking of institutions of higher ed and things happening, as a terrible segue to a thing that happened at my school today, where I work at
Perfect.
UC Cincinnati. Two of our, most well-known, let's say, alums are the Kelsey brothers, Travis and Jason, and they did a recording of their podcast on campus today as a fundraiser for our UC athletics, because that's what we need. We need to fundraise for athletics, and but so there's like a big hubbub around the campus, and the parking office like kind of sent out the message ahead of time, like, hey, this thing's going to start at 5. You might want to leave campus early today. I was glad I did, because I left at like 4:30 and I was already getting really crazy around campus for the traffic and stuff. But still pretty cool, that we had those guys on campus. It would have been fun to go to, but they sold out. The tickets like sold out instantly, of course.
Were they from the area, or did they just both go to Cincinnati to the
They're from
school?
like right next to Cleveland, I think.
Oh,
But they
okay.
both went to UC.
So no Swifties, or maybe some Swifties.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, maybe Taylor Swift was there. I have no idea.
No concert. Hey,
Surprise
Jordan,
appearance.
Jordan Love was at the volleyball game last weekend that I wanted to go to, but it wasn't able to go to. So you never know who you might see where you're going.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's true.
And the Mojo won 2 in a row, so that's great. They got killed last night by I forgot which city they're from. Oh my gosh, my brain just went. But the number 1 team.
Oh, the number 2. Well, I mean, there's no shame in that. So
No.
not so bad.
I was asking people, it's like, are they just not showing up tonight? And they're like, no, it's just that team is so good. And why can't I think of their name? The Rave? Why? My brain just went. That's okay.
It'll come to you later, Don. You'll blurt it out in the middle of something unrelated.
The guy at the DMV broke some more of my brain cells today.
Oh, no.
That's what happened. He was just mean for no reason.
No good.
Okay. Yeah, so Andrew, a lot has changed. So you've moved across the country since your last appearance here. You've married. You've bought a home. You have, let's see, what else did you do? You did something else really big. What was it?
I got my doctorate recently. So
there you go.
Finished school.
Dr. Andrew
Awesome.
Mertig. There we go.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I should have put that across the bottom, I guess. I'm kidding.
That's right.
I rode that for a week on Twitter, and
Yes.
that was the max of my ability to, I don't take myself seriously enough to do silly things like that. But yeah, no, it's starting a new job, like you mentioned, moving across the country, getting married, school, work, all of those things kept me very busy. But I will say I'm super excited every year. Like the draft is my favorite time of year. It's like one of my decompression things. Even though I do a lot of work building up towards it, the actual event itself is like one of my favorite things in the year. And historically, we have always done the episode the night of the first round of the draft. So last year, of course, we were scheduled to do so. Also so happened to fall on the day that we closed on our house. And so we came here, which was about an hour-ish away from where we were renting. And we had a little celebration with the realtor. And then as we were leaving, there was something wrong that like couldn't wait. And at least my wife thought it couldn't wait. And so we kept taking more and more time to take care of this, and the night kept creeping on and on and on. And so not only did I miss the entirety of the first round, but then I had to tell Maggie and Kyle to go ahead and just record without me, which it was not a particularly friendly situation in my personal life, but also kind of a disappointment. So like this year, it's like I have nothing. There's not going to be anything that gets in my way. I'm just going to sit on the couch, get some junk food. I'm going to like really, really enjoy night 1. Night 2, we have some fun stuff planned for us with the podcast. And so I'm really, really looking forward to the draft this year.
Love it.
Just be able to just soak it in. So, of course you say that's like your favorite part of the year, right?
It really is. Yeah. So
Mhm.
like I was I don't know if I'm supposed to get into background stuff because I know we covered this, but like I have always been way too into the draft. When I was a little kid, like I wanted to know like where was Charlie Ward going to get drafted? And if you don't know Charlie Ward, he was the quarterback for Florida State. Mentioned Florida State earlier tonight, John. And he won the Heisman Trophy and then went undrafted because he told
Oh,
all the
wow.
NFL teams, I'm going to go play in the NBA. And he did. He played for the New York
Oh,
Knicks.
Hmm.
But I was like, Charlie Ward was my favorite college player and he didn't get drafted. Like, why didn't the Packers draft him? And so, you know, it other things like really caught my interest. There was this whole Terrell Buckley, another Florida State player, and Troy Vincent, who went to Wisconsin. It's like, who are the Packers going to take at cornerback? They ended up taking Terrell Buckley. And like back then, there was no draft coverage. So it was just like, where can I get these little bits and pieces of information? Finally, like we didn't have cable until I was in middle school. So then finally I could watch a little bit of the draft. And then, you know, maybe if I was like really good, one of my parents might bribe me with a draft guide if we went to a store. But like, I was just really into it. And then, you know, the internet came out and then you could kind of find some stuff about the draft, but it wasn't, I mean, there was no draft industrial complex, as Aaron Nagler likes to say.
Hmm.
It was just, you might find one website somewhere that has a mock draft and that person could have no idea what they're talking about whatsoever. Film wasn't readily available, but I just really loved learning about this. I loved watching the draft. And then as I got a little bit older, I was like, I really, you know, I would love to do something like this with my life. And so I did my undergrad to be a journalist. I interned at Fox 11 in Green Bay. The highlight of my internship experience was I got to run their draft coverage the year that the Packers took AJ Hawk and Craig Jennings.
oh,
And
wow.
like, that was really, really cool. It turned out that like media was not the career for me. I love doing this. I love talking about it, but I just couldn't do it professionally. Like to me, it would take all of the joy and excitement out of talking
Yeah.
about sports. So, it's something I love. I got the opportunity. Jersey Al, friend of this show for sure.
Mhm. That's right.
He gave me my first opportunity to write for PackersTalk.com, and then I was able to springboard that experience into some guest appearances on Railbird Central, which was Brian Caravu's podcast, like the first big podcast in Packers Nation. And then those appearances allowed me to put together a little bit of a, you know, application package to give to Andy when he was looking for people for Pack a Day. And then, you know, that just worked out. So it's been something I've been super, super passionate about. Something I absolutely love doing. Grinding draft stuff is a more recent development, maybe the last like 4 years where I'm really like grading prospects, 4 or 5 years. But it's something I enjoy, and the second I stop enjoying it, I will just stop doing it, and then I can go back and just, you know, chat with people on Twitter about draft stuff. And I don't put out grades anymore.
Get a whole lot of time back to yourself, basically.
Yeah, but I really love doing it right now.
Mhm.
It's something, you know, that as monotonous as it is, still gets me excited.
So when you think about it, like, what is it about it that gets you excited? Is it like digging into stats? Is it like, you know, evaluating people? Like, what is it you love about it?
Yeah, I love to see how a player performs in college and then the challenge that projecting that to an NFL player is, because there are so many examples of players who are really great in college, were not good in the pros, and vice versa, or, you know, maybe not the best college player, maybe a backup, and then they turned into a really excellent professional player. And nobody knows exactly like the art, right? Like there's no scientific formula because NFL teams would have figured it out already. So it's like this interpretation, and people can have opinions. And I love that interaction. Like when people are like friendly about it, I absolutely love that. There's a DM group that somebody added me to where they just talk draft stuff all the time, and that's like really fun. I don't get to participate as much as I'd like, but like just to see like who people love, who people don't. when people are, friendly about opinions, like it's okay. There's players I don't like as much as everybody else, but I can see your opinion on why that person might be good. Those interactions are really fun to me. So the people that are positive about it, like, I don't care if 3 people respond to me or 30 or 300. Like, I just like that interaction. It also helps to, like, I think about the draft from a league-wide standpoint. And so, like, there's lots of people who will dive into the metrics the Packers prefer and, how people specifically fit within this roster. And that's awesome. I'm so appreciative of that. It's just not me. I look at guys from like all across the league. And that's why some of my grades are like really weird. Like I'll have guys that the Packers wouldn't touch with the 10-foot pole, rated really highly. And, people are like, Packers wouldn't like that, man. I'm like, that's all right, because I want to follow their career. Like, even if they end up in Chicago or Minnesota, I like to follow their career and just, see how they turn out. And, I certainly hope for the best as you get like these incredibly talented young men who are, trying to live out their dream. And for me to like have a little nugget of that and be like, hey, I knew that guy before he was famous, right? Like, it's the old, I used to follow that band before they were popular.
Totally.
That to me is like super, super fun. Marcus Davenport, the famous New Orleans Saints draft pick that the Packers got a future first round pick and then were able to move back up and get Jair Alexander. The Saints with that pick took Marcus Davenport. He was somebody I was in on so early. This was back when I was writing for Packers Talk, and I wrote an article about him, and him and his mom followed me on Twitter. And I was like, I've made it. Marcus Davenport. Still rooting for the guy. He just keeps kicking around the other NFC North teams, but I'm still rooting for him.
Yeah.
So when you're like doing your evaluation of the players and kind of like building your horizontal draft board, which we've talked about in the show before and which I love, and I have open very frequently as a tab on the browsers I'm at any given moment. When you're doing this grading and evaluating, Andrew, like what's your process?
Yeah, so there's the first part, which is simply film grades. So I will watch however many players I can tolerate, and then I'm done. So I usually, this is one of the problems. I have to go to some sort of other resource to figure out who I'm going to watch, because I can't watch 500 prospects like Dane Brugler, and then try to like sort through which of the 500 I think are draftable. I just have to find a list somewhere. So I usually, this year I actually used PFF. I thought they had a pretty good board. Now, does that mean I missed some people? Absolutely. But I figure out who I'm going to watch, and I go through and I watch as many games as I can get access to. I do have some, insider people that are willing to share some links to some resources so I can watch more all 22 film instead of game film, but I'll watch whatever is out there. So, certainly there's players lower on the board that you might not be able to get access to. So I watch that. I give everybody a film grade. I have a spreadsheet, and every position has different categories that they get graded on. I'll just pull up one example. Quarterback. Everybody gets a grade 1 to 100 on my scale. So quarterback gets throw power, throw accuracy, field vision and decision making, throw on move, and running ability. Those are just things I decided were important for quarterbacks. There's no science behind it. Again, they all have different weights. So some are worth, 30 points, some are worth 10. And then I just give every quarterback I watch, I give a film grade. Once I'm done with film grades, like I can kick my feet back up because most of my work is done. All I have to do then, they're in a spreadsheet. I have positions, and then I have all offense, all defense, and then eventually they all get aggregated into one column. And I have an algorithm that I developed that factors in their age, positional value, which again is something I just made up, and then their athletic scores. So it takes their film grade and then it lumps all of these other things. They're weighted a little bit differently, and it spits out a number. And then that's how I rank guys. So is that perfect? No. But does it work for me? Yeah. I really like it. There are some times where quite literally a guy will have like, I was like, they were kind of okay. I didn't really like them that much. And then I'll put them in and the algorithm will spit out this really high number. And I'm like, I guess I really like them. but
Yeah,
but
'cause
like
it's your
it,
standard.
absolutely, it
It's
keeps
your
me
rules.
honest a little bit
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so if I value guys that are really athletic and really young, sometimes you can have kind of an okay film grade, but you're really young and you're really athletic, and that's going to shoot you up the board. So that's how I figure it out. Most guys, I'm pretty close-ish on consensus rankings. Some players I'm really high on, some I'm really low on, and that's part of the fun of it, right? Like you're gonna have different opinions than people. If I was just gonna spit out the same thing that Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah does, then I wouldn't bother watching film.
Yeah, exactly. What would be the point of that? I mean, like any evaluation system that's been developed by any of the major outlets, it's some kind of underpinning, some kind of numbers behind it, and it's like you have the one you developed. It doesn't mean it's any less good than theirs, just because you're not as doesn't have like the platform they do for sure. Because I mean, it sounds like you've really thought a lot about how you have developed this, and so I'm wondering then, Andrew, like over time, have you tweaked it? Kind of thought, well, I should actually be weighting this more, or like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, positional values especially have changed. So the biggest positional value bump I have is quarterback, of course. It's the NFL, quarterbacks are king. That's +4. The
Mm-hmm.
lowest that I have, actually, I don't even remember. So running back is -2, interior offensive lineman is -2. So in theory, right, like all things equal, a quarterback who is a 74 and a running back who is an 80 technically are equal.
Mm-hmm.
So those things have changed. I probably mess with that formula every year, sort of try to feel out like what is the NFL really valuing right now. Maybe interior offensive line needs a bump up based on the way that NFL teams are paying some guards and
Yeah.
centers right now. So those are all it's all learning experience. It's kind of test it out. If you have a bunch of players that are way too low when the
Mm-hmm.
draft comes around, then you're like, yeah, maybe I need to take a look at that.
And the crazy thing about like, checking your own projections against what actually happens, it almost feels like random a lot of times because it's like, well, what does that team think they need of who's there, not like who's necessarily the best player on the board, so it just comes down to like team needs so much that
Mhm.
as much as I would like, I've thought before, like, hey, what if I took like everyone's, like top 5 round, kind of like the list they put out and then compared it, like, made a big old spreadsheet, compared it against what actually happened. It's like, well, no, because that's not really, it doesn't really work that way. I don't know. I think about these, like comparing how people did versus, or like people projected versus what actually happened is a thing that really fascinates me. Like when we do the cut downs to the all 53 rosters, I compile a bunch of those, for example, to see like how close did people get in guessing those. So yeah, just the time that you put into this evaluation, it completely fascinates me, and then coming up with, like, again, I mentioned the horizontal draft board, which I think is a great resource people should absolutely know about. That's a super handy thing for me to be able to use and reference, as I'm talking about draft stuff with other people. So actually, do you want to talk about the horizontal draft board? Can I get you to talk about that a
Yeah,
bit?
sure. I'm trying to remember exactly what spurned that. So a lot of my work, especially like messing with the algorithms and other things, happened during peak COVID. I was by myself and had nothing but time. And so, like that early like 2020 spring leading up to the draft, it was like, well, I got a lot of time to mess around. I'm like out of TV shows to watch. Like, what else am I going to do? And the horizontal draft board, I want to say it was maybe Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, that on their podcast they were kind of talking about like, yes, we produce lists that have players in order, 1 to 250 or whatever. But really, like when you're in the draft room, both of them former scouts, teams don't look at it that way. they
Mhm.
throw people into buckets. And so they mentioned the idea of a horizontal draft board. And I was like, okay, well, you got some time. Why don't you just throw this together? So it's my pinned tweet. If
Mhm.
you go to at Andrew Mertig, and basically it's just my particular rankings, but instead of saying here's players 1 through 200, I put them in, okay, here's the top 10 players, and then across the board you have the different positions. So who are your top 10 players? And I happen to have 3 quarterbacks in that bucket, not surprisingly, if you
Mhm.
listen to mock drafts. And then 3 wide receivers, 2 offensive tackles, and 2 cornerbacks. Those are my top 10. But then I take a look. Here's my first round, late first, early second. So I sort of played with that a little bit because NFL teams typically don't have first round grades on 32 players. Usually it's a smaller sample than that. So
Mhm.
some years it might be 14, some it might be 22. So for me, I have a cutoff on my grade scale and I put the rest of them in the first round. And then I have a late first, early second, and then it just goes down from there. So for me, this is what I print out when I'm watching the draft, and I just
Mhm.
cross a player off when they get picked, and I have a highlighter if the Packers pick them, and that's how I follow along. So then, if somebody's like, "Who's your best available?" I don't have to go through like a list, like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mhm.
I just say, okay, well, I think like these are the 4 players the Packers might be considering.
Yeah, and like just the visual organization of it, I love. Because I'll be like, well, who are the safeties that might be more highly rated, and like where might they go? Like your board here is really handy for kind of like getting a good sense of that. And like this is to say, I put a lot of trust and faith in your evaluations and your rankings of things.
Maybe
So
you shouldn't.
I don't know about that, man. It's been handy here. So but I will say, I'm wondering like what are some of the people this year that you're more high on than others are, and that you're not as high on as other people are?
Yeah, ooh, lots. So one that is like top of mind for me. So I'm thinking running back, right? Like
Mhm.
nobody really has running backs rated very highly this year at all. And the
Right.
order people have them in is all over the place. I, for instance, have Will Shipley as my like running back 2.
Mhm.
He's a running back from Clemson, not nearly that high on just about anybody else's board. I really like him. I think he's like an elite pass catching type of people, but type of player. People don't necessarily agree with that. That's cool too. A player that I have really, really low is Jalen Wright, the running back out of Tennessee. So a lot of people really like him. He's super fast. He's really athletic. He's got some really great like top end stuff on tape. I just didn't see it with him the same way a lot of other people do. So I have like a 5th round grade on him. A lot of people think he's like a 2nd, 3rd round guy.
Hmm.
So you get those differences, and I think that's totally fine. I am not very high on JJ McCarthy. I think he's going to get picked super early. I think he
Yeah.
might end up being a player the Packers play twice a year, and so that's fine by me. Whereas a guy like Michael Penix Jr., some mock drafts have him going, in the top 10 or teens. Some mock drafts have him going in the 3rd round. So
Hmm.
like it's fun to see those players, see what the NFL really thinks about them. See if you're right or wrong.
Yeah, totally. And it's
It's
funny, like as the
exciting.
draft unfolds, we have like runs on certain positions all of a sudden that kind of throw everybody's like perceptions off about what they thought the order was going to be. It's like all of a sudden a team feels like they need to grab a running back because they're all going off the board fast. I feel like that's what it was like the Packers picking up Sean Clifford last year. I was like, oh, the quarterbacks suddenly are like just flying off. So that always can throw things off. Don, I've been monopolizing the question space here for Andrew, so I'm gonna
Oh,
throw it over to
please.
you
No,
because I
no,
feel like I'm
no.
just
I'm
talking and
I'm
talking.
glad. I'm in that kind of quiet, subdued mood anyway, so it's all good. I was just saying it's really exciting. The only thing I thought of is, and by the way, thanks again for bringing us back to your childhood or your younger years as a draft geek. I love that. Um, do you keep any spreadsheets, or I know you watch like I do, like a lot of us do, where players go, how they do. But do you keep any do you follow up with any spreadsheets on how they actually end up being drafted, but then also how they do like after mid-year or anything like that?
So early on, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I would go through and I would write down the pick next to every single player. And then the intention was I'm going to go back in and I'm going to keep track of where I did well and where I
Mhm.
didn't do well. It just like after the draft, I'm usually like, I'm done for a little while. Like I'll continue on the podcast and we have stuff that we get excited about, but typically like I can't handle the draft
That's a lot.
anymore. Like
Yeah.
there's some amazing content creators that are like
Right.
already working on 2025 players. Like I
Oof.
can't do that. I just my motivation wanes pretty quickly when I get too far over my skis. So I don't, but I did last year. I went back historically and I took all of my draft sheets and I compiled them into one like cumulative. So it's
Mhm.
every player I've ever graded. I think I started in the
Oh.
21 class or the 2020 class, officially grading. Before that, it was kind of unofficial. And then every year I go back through and I say, well, who were the best players that I had, at the wide receiver position. I don't like bringing up wide receiver because that one's really, really embarrassing for me. I have some like amazing catches there. Like I was so much higher on like Justin Jefferson than pretty much anybody was. I
Mhm.
was really, really high on Christian Watson as well. But then I have some like bad ones, like Rondale Moore, who is not a very good player right now.
Mhm.
Maybe he'll do better in Atlanta this year. But I had him like one of my top 10 receivers ever.
Oh, wow.
So, swings and misses.
Sure.
The draft dudes love to say if you haven't missed on a prospect, you haven't evaluated a prospect.
And Brian Maffey is in the chat. Hey, Brian, and hey to everyone in the chat. Andrew is speaking only the truth about
Hi,
how
Brian.
the NFL draft boards work. And JJ is going to be in purple. Isn't just? What are we talking about? Are we talking about
JJ
Justin
McCarthy.
Jefferson?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That would be as the Viking fans I was talking to last night would say that's going to be JJ to JJ.
Right,
Yep.
right. That threw me off a second. Yes.
Totally.
Oh, well, another quick superlative, Andrew, one of your tweets this week, shouting out to the both of you awesome dudes. So your tweet read, starting to think Matt Trombone, that's you, Maddie Pickett. For anyone who doesn't know what Matt Trombone is, might be a secret NFL insider. The listener mock draft over the last 4 years, he has successfully picked Trevor Lawrence to the Jags.
Okay, that one was easy though.
Yeah,
Hardly
that
any
was
credit.
That one was
Deserved that.
easy.
That was a gimme.
Okay, Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau to the Giants, and Peter Skoronski to the Titans. Very good. I wonder how mine did. I have to go back and look at what I picked.
So
Yeah,
I do a really poor job of following up after the draft with this. But
That's
then
what I was
usually
gonna
when I'm preparing the next years, I go
Mhm.
back and I find the
Got
script
it.
that we had for the show and I copy it. And so then I always do a quick scroll through. And normally, I mean, top few picks are like somewhat predictable, right? Like the
Mhm.
Trevor Lawrence of the Jaguars. We all knew that was going to happen. But once you get past like pick 3 or 4, depending on the draft, it's wildly unpredictable. And even a lot of experts don't do very well. And now like we add in the factor of like everybody's kind of doing their own self-interest thing here. Like it's not just one person picking for every team, hearing reports of what they're going to do. They're all just like, I think it would be cool if, this team drafts this player. And Matt, just on fire. We only usually have like 2 or 3 correct picks once you get out of that top like 3 or 4 per year, and Matt has nailed, what is that, 3 of the last 4 drafts? It's pretty good.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Yeah, just
and
a
I know
little
Brian.
research,
I know Brian is on 2025. He's probably looking at 2026 prospects. That guy is wild. He is like in the film.
Right. Talking 2025 draft picks.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when I worked in most of my life was in the fashion industry, and we were designing for 2-3 years ahead of time. We're like,
Wow.
and people would say something like, "Oh, this is in now." It's like, yeah. It's like I'm in another,
For now.
decade right now. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we love Brian though. He's we've mentioned him, I think, every episode since draft season started. Since what we conceptualize as draft season started, that is, I feel like his name has just kind of come up. So Brian, man, you're awesome.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah, for sure. Very knowledgeable.
Good guy.
So Andrew, my next question for you then is, you had mentioned a few of the different like kind of big deal draft nicks out there. Obviously, Mel Kiper being the OG, but then Bucky Brooks, Daniel Jeremiah. You mentioned, of course, Dane Brugler. So, like for you, who are your top go-to guys for draft stuff?
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah is the guy like at the national, like the highest of national levels that I respect the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like I take what he says very seriously. I think a lot of times he has the connections. Like he's still young enough and still ingrained in the scouting community that he knows most, if not all, of the GMs around the NFL. And so what he says to me, like I'm paying attention to. I really like the way that he approaches the topic too. So he's one, but like 1A or he's 1A. 1B, I think, is Joe Marino. So if you're not familiar, it's the Locked On NFL Scouting. It's that other podcast network, and but like Joe Marino has been a guest on specifically our Pack-A-Day episode back when we were the Friday show. I think 4 times. He's like one of the most frequent guests we've ever had across all of the Pack-A-Day shows. And he's not only just like really smart, really good at breaking things down, but like a genuinely great guy. I love listening. Him and Kyle Krabs do a phenomenal job. To me, that's like an everyday listen. So I get my local stuff from mostly Pack-A-Day, but some other really fantastic sources as well. And that's like my national show. And if I have time, which I often do because Southern California traffic, then I'll start diving into some of the other ones. But I love that national perspective, and especially somebody that you have a connection with. And Kyle Fellows got a huge shout out on their show like 2 weeks ago or something. It was something to do with the Aaron Rodgers vice president tweet. And so I am driving in like gridlock traffic, and I hear Kyle Fellows get mentioned on a national show out of nowhere, and I'm like drifting out of my lane like, what?
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
That's
You're
fantastic.
like, that guy, Kyle Fellows?
Yeah,
what?
How did he get that?
That's a great question, though, that you asked there, Maddie, because a lot of people, it's like, where to start? Because there are so many creators. But it's really good to hear your recommendations there, Andrew. That's a really smart question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah. So you said,
and I mean, Brian and Joe are chatting here. They're 2 of the aforementioned DM group. I don't know if I just revealed a super secret industry thing, but like I just love I love that, like, bouncing ideas off of people, and it doesn't always like change my mind, but it's fun to see other people that are really passionate about the same thing and have a network to talk about that.
It's healthy. To be in on that. It makes your brain think, even if you don't change your mind.
Well, it's like we always tell
your mind. It's about growing your mind.
Growing your mind.
Absolutely.
I love that. It's like we always tell our college students, get involved with clubs because you get to meet people with shared interests, and that's a great way to develop good friendships and find a sense of belonging. Right there, man. There it is. Student development theory. So you mentioned Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs. What's their show called?
It's Locked On NFL Scouting.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So like you said, it's part of that network. I missed the name of it.
Yeah. Sorry. That's my passive aggressive Midwestern nature, but
of course.
Yeah, really, really phenomenal show. So they used to be it used to be just the draft dudes, and then They each host their own show. Joe does the Locked On Bills, Kyle does Locked On Dolphins, but then their collaborative effort now is Locked On NFL Scouting.
Nice. I didn't know about that show. I did not know about that show. And I do
Me
follow
neither.
the lockdown stuff. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
So they do a draft show year round then, or is it just like in season or?
So it used to be like really heavy draft all year. Now they're a little bit more focused on overall like roster building, I would say. So during the season, there's a lot less draft specific content. It's more of a traditional NFL show. But in the off season, yeah, it's like real heavy draft and stuff that I definitely nerd out on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Solid recommendation then.
I like it. So do we have any specific questions? I know we've talked on this show about your horizontal draft board and your Excel. Matt and I both love Excel spreadsheets a lot.
Oh my God, so much. Oh my God.
It's like power. You can have power. Knowledge is power. So were we going to get into that a little bit more? We're going to do like tie in our superlatives to our questions, Maddie, for Andrew. How are we handling this?
Well, I mean, there are certain things I wanted to ask Andrew about, which I feel like I've exhausted my store of questions now, knowing more about your process and about who you like to look to and kind of how you get into it. So like, yeah, I'm good. I have no further questions.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's kind of making me want to just log off and go start reading and looking at more stuff. I've been a little bit lagging this year, so I tend to cram anyway. That's how I got through college. That's how I got through life.
Yeah.
It's how I learn. I absorb. A lot of people cram and then they forget everything the next day. I actually I remember what I crammed about. So, but it's making me want to cram, and I'm running out of time. So we've only got 2 weeks left for the draft. So it's time to cram.
Well, Dawn, that can actually lead really nicely into one of my superlatives if you want me to kind of jump in with that.
Let's hear it.
So, as I said, the last few weeks, I've been doing every one of my superlatives has been best draft content of the week, and this has been a phenomenal week for it because two major resources came out. The really well-known one is Dane Brugler's The Beast, which is aptly named because it is just insanely chock full of information about just a million prospects and like a little story about all of them, information. The depth and breadth of it is amazing, and it's widely recognized, of course, as being one of the great team agnostic draft guides that are out there. I downloaded it the other day. I started looking at it, I was like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. I'll need to just kind of like a little bit at a time to get into it. So like there's a great place to go to for part of your cramming. But then we also talked about, of course, team specific draft guides, and Packer reports came out this week as well, which I'm very excited about. There's some great, in fact, I meant to pull it up before we started here so I could mention the articles, but it's a lot of writing from Ross Uglum and Jacob Westendorf did a lot of the writing for it. But I like that they look at it with, of course, the Packers traditional thresholds kind of a lens to it. So it is very Packer specific in the way how the draft guide's constructed and how they talk about the players and stuff like that. And they cover just a ton of prospects in theirs as well. And additionally, there's a really good thing at the very back of it that I always like have up to refer to, because they have like the sort of a trade value chart to like as just a nice reference there. So kind of like bonus value add there. And I'll mention here that Brian is saying in the chat here that Cheesehead TV's guide is out too. I know Brian, who wrote for the guide. In fact, we talked about it last week because it came out last week. But yeah, no, also a great resource, of course. Having those 3 draft guides up in my PDFs, in my Adobe Acrobat, like kind of in the background at most times is handy. I don't work from home as much anymore, so it's not up on my home computer, but on my work computer, I can tell you if I were going in right now, it's right there. So 3 amazing draft guides, 2 of which came out this week. Cannot recommend them highly enough. And the thing about them is that the one from Packer Report, it's like $8 or $9 or whatever. The one from Cheesehead TV is like $15 or something like that. Like these are very cheap An amazing, information dense resources put together by awesome people. And the Beast, for that matter, is free with your athletic subscription. And I would recommend being subscribed to that, that resource. What would you say the Athletic is? That website, that periodical, that, I don't know, that thing, the Athletic. Be subscribed. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You get to read Matt Schneiman stuff in there, and their podcasts are amazing too. So anyhow, that was a lot of me talking to say that, dude, this week some really great stuff came out. Check it out. It's good stuff.
All the downloads, all the guides came out. I just, as you were talking about it, I'm like, that's right. I paid for these things and I didn't download them yet. So I just downloaded the Green Bay draft guide from the Packers report, and it's like 1 million pages just by itself, 294 pages.
So good.
Of really fantastic information. I have not downloaded the Cheesehead or the Beast yet, but it's I did pay. I'm time to cram, man. I'm so excited.
That's right.
Now. You guys
it is
have me
time.
jazzed. You have me jazzed. I'm like, I'm downloading them while we're talking.
So before we get on to Andrew's first superlative, I just want to point out, Joe mentioned here in the chat, $15 for something Mafia wrote, way too much. I mean, you're right. But it's not just his stuff. It's a lot of other stuff.
You can just cut his section out.
Yeah.
Like, just don't print it. You put the page range up until where he starts, and then a semicolon, and then the page after it starts, and go to the end. Like, it's really easy.
Well, Brian, I did cut out your part, but that's because I posted it on my fridge. So that's the kind of cutting out I did.
By the way, this is a good question. What both of you guys, what is your snack food for draft night? What is your junk food go to?
Oh, Brian just asked a really great question too.
And then Brian also asked a question.
Food questions coming fast and furious.
I'm sorry, I was overloaded.
I'm gonna go first on Brian's question, and then I will answer yours.
I want to know.
Okay, so In-N-Out is fine. Like, sometimes it's good. But they have one option on their menu. So, like, yes, they do burgers very well.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, Culver's has all of the options. Like, they're not my favorite cheese curds, but having cheese curds is better than not having cheese curds. And then I can get buffalo chicken tenders. I would never buy fish from Culver's, but it could. Mm-hmm. Like, they have, great burgers as well. Like, I'm not going to get into the comparison between the two. I like Culver's fries better. I like Culver's is really good root beer, which is super strange. Like, they have custard, which I like better than the In-N-Out shake. So, like, I'm still a Midwesterner at heart, but In-N-Out, very good. I'll go there.
So In-N-Out is a specialty place. It's that they just have the burgers and the fries, and that's what they do, and they have their special way of doing it. Right. That makes sense. I don't eat either of them, but that's cool. Yeah.
Too much meat, too much condiments for you.
It took me, I tried an In-N-Out burger when I was like in my 40s, finally. Because I'm primarily a vegan, and I was having a medical issue where it's like, okay, you need to eat meat, which I'm having right now, which I haven't had an In-N-Out, but I love them so much that, did I tell you this story?
Go for it, Don.
I loved them so much because people at work would get them. I'm like, hey, Don, you want an In-N-Out? It was like kind of ha, 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 ha. She's going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I'm like, okay, I want an In-N-Out because they kind of started smelling good.
Sure.
It's like having a grill, like grilling. It smells good even if you don't like to eat meat. Or turkey, it's like, this kind of smells good. So I was like, okay, I'll try a burger. And I got one. I was like, this is amazing. And then the next day, Don, you want to go to, it was like an everyday thing at this, where I was working. And because we had one like right down the street. And like, okay, so I had, after being a vegan for like, at this point, 20 years, I had In-N-Out burgers 3 times in a row. And I'm like, I call my doctor. I'm like, I have this really bad pain on my right side. I can't stand. He's like, did you change your diet or eat anything with high fat or anything like different? And I was like, I had an appendicitis attack.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't have to have my it removed or anything like that, but it was my gallbladder. Oh my goodness. It's like you're having a gallbladder. Yeah. He's like, go to the store, drink a bunch of raw apple juice, as much as you can, drink a gallon if you can get it down.
Huh.
And within a day, I was fine. Yes, by
Wow.
the way. So if you have a
Well, I mean,
gallbladder,
whether you're a vegetarian or not, like probably nobody should be having In-N-Out 3 days in a row. I mean, that's there's
It was
that.
so good. It was so
That
good.
could floor
That's
most
fair.
people, I think.
I know.
Have you had In-N-Out, Matt?
No, I have not.
Hmm.
Sadly, no. But for burgers, I love Culver's and Five Guys. Huge fan. Unfortunately, my wife is not a Five Guys fan, so it's like if she's out of town or something, it's like, all right, I know what we're in for dinner.
That's what you're doing, yeah. I think I liked In-N-Out being a vegan because I ordered it like burnt, and they're kind of thinnish patties, so it wasn't like I was really eating meat. I don't know.
Just charred.
Yep.
It was yeah. It was just salty and yum and it was like and the fries were pretty good, but I don't think I had the fries. I think I had maybe double. But
You were
even
serious.
there,
Good choice.
like
Yeah.
even there, the double. If I've had it since then, because then I was off of In-N-Out for like another 20 years. Well, once in a while, I just feel like, oh, that smells good. Let's get it. And I won't, like, I'll have a double half. So I don't only have a little half part of the melted taxi cabs. Because I think, honestly, it was the melted taxi cabs that got me sick, not the burger part. The orange stuff, which isn't cheese.
I have so many questions. Melted taxi cabs. What is that?
That's what they call cheese.
But it's not cheese.
It's orange. And it looks like plastic. And it looks like the color of it looks like melted taxi. Doesn't it? You don't know that? That's.
I have never heard that phrase before, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's like the kind of cheese that comes out of like a plastic, individually wrapped plastic, like a Kraft single, but like it's probably cheddar instead of American. I don't know.
Like,
it's not great cheese,
really,
but
right.
Yeah, it's just melted chicks. I just think it's melted. I think it's just there for the color. I don't think it's really got any nutritional value or anything.
Cheese doesn't have nutritional value.
Okay, yeah. So they have what's called animal style at In-N-Out, and I forgot what that was. What is animal style? Is that like 3 packs?
I don't know. So now it's time to admit that I can't with that. So now it's time to admit that like I don't eat any condiments or
me
like
either.
Yeah, like I won't put like vegetables on a burger. Like that's a big no for me. So you think Andy Herman's food takes are wild and out there? Just hang around me for a while. And to answer your question from earlier, Dawn, pizza and wings, pretty typical for draft night.
It's pizza and wings. Okay. Oh, so that's more than junk food. That's like a whole like lot of food. It's not like
that's the precursor.
Oh, okay. What about you, Maddie? What's your snack food for draft night after?
Yeah, I don't have one. And since the draft night, the first night is on Thursdays, and since we go on Thursdays for the podcast, like I haven't really focused on watching the draft. At least night one.
Right.
Last year, well, actually, I think most years the local Packers fan group. With Max Bar, the #1 Packers bar in America. They did a big party there at the bar for the night one, so I've missed it the last couple of years. And they said they're gonna do something for night 2 last year. I showed up, I had my like Christian Watson jersey on, I was all excited about it, and nobody else showed up. So I was like, I'm just alone in this bar, like eating pizza, which was fine. We're just like, man, I thought the party was going on here.
Wow, I don't remember that. You went.
Everyone went on the Thursday.
Well, you could go there and record the podcast from Max Bar.
Oh, it's a loud one. They're a rowdy crew for sure.
I love it. Yeah.
So I think Brian answered the question about animal style. I said extra produce, mustard, grilled onions.
Okay.
Oh, and extra pickles. I think an extra Thousand Island. I'm looking at website that mentions it as well. So, huh? Animals now.
Hey, Mona. Hey, Mona. Nice
Animals
to
are
see
well
you.
known for liking Thousand Island dressing, I guess. So,
Mona's out here. Mona, we're talking in and out. Like we're on an in and out thing. And we're talking
we got the
snacks.
SoCal crew tonight. So
That's right. Okay, so if you stay home, what's your snack gonna be?
If I did?
I'll pick. You talking Matt?
Yeah, you're having pizza and wings, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I'm not like a football time snack guy, actually, really, because I've been asked that before. Like, what do you eat when you're watching the games? Like, nothing. I don't know, drinking some coffee, I guess.
Too
But
nervous. Drinking coffee. Yeah. Where do you get your pizza and wings out here, Andrew? On another, or are you just talking like grocery store
Pass.
type things? Oh,
Skip.
okay.
No,
Okay.
it's usually chain places. I honestly have a really hard time finding any good pizza places around
There
here.
is
Every
no
time
good
somebody
pizza
tells
out.
me,
That's why I asked. Yeah.
the
There-
locals
that's
will
what
be
he
like,
said.
"Oh no, you really got to try this place." And I'll try it, and I'll be like, "Eh."
Don't even bother.
I'll usually go to like
oh,
a strip mall, like a Brooklyn style pizza place in a strip mall,
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at least that's like close to what I like.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've been here how many years, and no, just don't bother with
So
me.
many other wonderful styles of food,
Sure.
but like pizza,
Yeah.
no bueno.
Mm-hmm.
When you started that sentence, you said, "I usually go to a strip." I was like, "What? Oh, mall, a strip mall for
Oh,
your food." Probably better food options there. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Mona says Bobby Flay said In-N-Out is the best fast food burger place on Hot Wings interview. Okay, I believe it. It's very
There you go.
special.
Bobby
You'll
Flay
have
says.
to tap it when you're. Is there an In-N-Out in Seattle? I think they have In-N-Outs in Seattle, Maddie. Because you're going to be in Seattle, I think, right?
Oh, I suppose I am. That's right. So, hey,
week.
while we're talking about it, I'm not going to be here next week, everyone.
Right.
I'll be in mostly Idaho, actually, but in Seattle for one night at the end of it because my older kid has a jazz competition out there that I'll be helping to chaperone. So, looking forward to that. So, Dawn's going to have somebody else in my place next week. So,
I believe I am. I am.
Dawn might have someone else. It might be Dawn talking to herself.
It
We'll
might
see.
be
I don't
me.
know.
It
Tune
might
in.
be me. That's right. I think I'm having Katie Sunderman. Where are you, Katie Sunderman?
Katie, I love you. She's awesome.
Uh-huh.
So should we go back into superlatives? We kind of like took a couple tangents there, but Andrew, I know that you have something brought, right?
Yeah, I'll fire off three. So
all right.
Number one is best guest appearance, and that goes to Tom Grossi at WrestleMania because I just wanted to watch WrestleMania. Why is this guy in the picture the whole time? Get out of here, Tom. I don't need to see you everywhere I turn. So that's really cool. I don't know how you get the hookup to even be able to buy second row seats at WrestleMania, but what a cool experience. I love this the tweet he had about how his dad took him when he was young and they sat in the last row in the highest part of the stadium. And then he got to treat his dad. That's really cool. Tom, I have met him once in real life, and I hate how nice of a person he is. Like, it's not just an act. Gross. When people are that nice, I'm actually kind of suspicious. Number two,
he's for real nice.
Yeah. Speaking of nice people, for me, I said superlative most underrated draft content creator, Kyle Fellows. Kyle has become a very close friend of mine over the years, and I absolutely love and appreciate the way he looks at things. We often disagree in the funnest way possible, and we really rib each other about how much we hate that prospect. But just like really cool. He takes a really cool perspective too. He listens to a lot of interviews of players and gets a really good sense of who they are as people and how they talk about football, and always has some perspectives that I just absolutely do not. And so shout out Kyle. And then I'm going to say in advance, predictor, best draft stream. I'm going to go with the Pack-A-Day draft stream. So Andy Andy announced that there's going to be a draft stream at least night 1 and night 2. And night 2, Friday, is going to be co-hosted by Andy and Maggie Loney. Maggie is amazing, as you know.
Mhm.
And hey, they might have a cool special guest. Who knows?
Ooh.
It's gonna be Kyle, right? That's the special. That's the cool special guest. Kyle Hollis.
I said cool, Matt. I said cool.
Well, you said he's underrated, but I mean, I've heard that he's being talked about on the national podcasts. So
Very true.
rumor has it.
Mostly
so.
for his political tweets, but
What did he say, by the way? I missed that tweet.
He in April, like last April, a full year ago, he tweeted a joke about how Aaron Rodgers is going to be Robert Kennedy Jr.'s vice presidential candidate. And then when the rumors were swirling, it was like, is this guy Nostradamus or what's going on here?
That was kind of predictable, though, honestly. But yeah.
No, woof. So, quick plug here for the Ohana Packers edition live stream happening on the second night as well, which maybe might have an not totally cool person showing up, but we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot of great streams gonna be happening out there during the draft. A lot of good content happening for sure.
Lots of really knowledgeable people, and that's such a cool way to like add on to your draft watching experience. So whatever you happen to be doing, check them all out. You can bounce around.
Yeah,
you can because the way the NFL does it, it's like 5 months before they say the name and the guy walks out.
I know.
It's so weird.
They'll put like 15 minutes before they announce like the Bears picking Caleb Williams, and we all are like, we know what's happening here. Like, are you kidding me?
Come on already.
Take the full clock.
Yes. Time to surf. It's a good time to surf and eat your wings and your pizza.
There you go.
I don't know what I'm having. Probably nothing. I'm not.
Yeah. We didn't ask you, Don. Yeah, we should ask. What's your draft snack?
I've been having tummy issues. That's why I keep having to go to the doctor. I'm like, what could I have that won't like make me miserable? And so last week I was at Costco because I was not eating anything. I'm like, I'm just going to Costco and I'm going to buy everything that looks good. By the way, I came up with a new sandwich. And I bought these, it was like, and it's like you've got 1 million pounds of everything. But I bought these super unhealthy veggie fries. It was basically like those string potato chips, but only vegetables. They're real airy. Like a
veggie straws kind of a thing? Or?
Yeah, straws. So I think I'll get some veggie straws. I know it's boring. Oh,
no, those are good. That's great. Because
go ahead.
No, so they're good because they are light. So you eat like
they're light.
Half of a massive Costco size bag of those things, and you're like, oh, it's all good.
Losing it all night. So I don't remember why I got tzatziki, and I got croissants because the Costco croissants are actually quite good. Otherwise, I get them at a French bakery over here, but then you get like 6 million, like this big thing of croissant. And I got, and I didn't open it yet. I got some goat cheese with fig, right? So maybe some goat cheese with fig and a croissant. Like that would be nice. That would be nice.
That's fancy.
I got the tzatziki, and I ended up making a sandwich up. It's smoked salmon. Yes, I had salmon. Smoked salmon on croissant with tzatziki, because I don't do condiments either.
Right. Sounds good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's my new Sammy. Yeah.
I would eat that. Yeah, that sounds delicious.
You would eat it. It's really good, and it's really good tzatziki. I didn't think I was going to get great tzatziki. I've made my own, but this was really good. Couldn't stop eating it. So then I started dipping the straws in the tzatziki. Yeah, it was kind of a tzatziki week. Even the cat ate the tzatziki.
So, folks, try Don's new recipe.
Yeah, Sammy. I don't know. We need to name it.
Oh, yeah. We could do a competition. Naming competition for the sandwich. Oh, I love it. I love it so much, Sean.
I'm still
Um,
looking for an In-N-Out in Seattle while we're talking.
there you go. Well, should I do my? I still have two other superlatives to
Yes,
get
let's
through here.
hear him.
So
Let's hear
me
him. Let's hear
just
him.
get those out of the way. So I also wanted to mention best analysis going to Kent Lee Platty. And quick side note, you know how I'm like obsessed with making sure people's names are pronounced correctly. I
Yes.
did reach out to Kent. I did say, "Hey man, how is your name pronounced?" He was able to provide the information that it is in fact Platty. So I have
Oh,
the text and everything, the you know
all right.
the Twitter message. So anyhow, Kent Lee Platty did this really great like kind of analysis of of the RAS stuff that he compiles, and it was just like a really fun tweet thread because it was like talking about his sort of analysis of the class as a whole, how they stacked into the classes, what positions were like kind of stronger or weaker relative to like sort of the norms. And he did it all with cat gifs along the way. It was cute as heck. It was
And
amazing.
he didn't.
So
Oh,
yeah,
I
if
want
you go to
to
check
see
out,
that.
his Twitter page, it's not too far down at this point because it's just earlier this week, but it was
Okay.
really fascinating, really cool insight. So highly recommend checking that out.
Okay.
The work that Kent Lee Platty does with RAS. For those who don't know, he's the guy who developed the formula for relative athletic score, which is a way to sort of get like a single number to say how athletic a given prospect is. It's something that is referred to very widely out there. I mean, it was talked about on the Athletic Football Show a couple times in the last couple of weeks, in fact. So kind of a big deal, but he's just like a super down to earth guy, like really friendly. And the fact that he was able to, or that they took the time to reply to me with this like random question about how his name's pronounced, like he's a cool guy, So yeah, really fascinating breakdown of that stuff there on his Twitter. And the other one I wanted to mention this week is best context. So the other kind of big news we didn't even mention here yet for the week for the Packers is that they're going to be playing in Brazil for the first game of the season. For their first game of the season, because I guess you could say that the Hall of Fame game, well, whatever. So they'll be playing the Eagles in Brazil, and there's a lot of really great Packers fans down there who are very excited about this. And a guy who we've talked about on the show a lot, Wendell
Yes.
Ferreira, we need to get him on the
Wendell.
show at some point for sure. Wrote this really great and really interesting article about like how football, NFL gridiron football came to be, came to develop a fan base in Brazil. And like there's kind of like certain events that he mentions in the article that kind of launched it forward, like big chunks at a time. So hearing like how that could develop, like hearing how anything develops into a thing is always fascinating. Learning the context, I think, is always fascinating. But for this very specific thing, how football fandom and even Green Bay Packers fandom, kind of came to Brazil and started to develop and grow. Very fascinating. And Wendell's an excellent writer, so really easy to read, really fun to read stuff. So highly recommend checking out that as well. He writes for A to Z Sports. But you can, of course, find the link through his Twitter as well.
How you feeling about Friday night games, Brazil? Isn't that opening weekend, right?
Yeah, I think so.
The NFL. Yeah.
They're, people are like, oh, what time zone is it? They're like 1 hour ahead of New York. It's not far off at all. So Friday night game, I don't know, whatever. Extra game that week, extra night to watch football. I'm all for it. I'm here for it, definitely.
I'm here for NFL every night of the week.
There you go. I mean, I got to see my kids sometimes, but
yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I did find an In-N-Out burger in Spanish Fork, Utah. Don't ask me why or how, but I can't seem to find one in Seattle, so I will keep looking, and I'm sorry I misled you. They're mostly in Southern California.
There you go.
Yeah. But somebody said they had them in Arizona or something, too, so that's why I thought they might have one in Seattle.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. So for my by the way, Mona's here. For my true crime fans, can I say where you're going in Idaho, Matt? Is that okay?
Oh my God, yes. Every time I've told people where I'm going in Idaho, like, there's always three people in the room who are like, oh, do you know about? Like, yes, I know about. Yes, I know about.
I was
the
first one to tell Matt. Okay.
You were.
So Maddie was like a couple weeks ago. So I'm going, to be missing one of our podcasts because I'm taking my kids somewhere in Idaho, and I'm like, oh, we're in Idaho because I love Idaho. There's a lot of cool places in Idaho, and he said Moscow. Mona, yeah, she says Boise. No, not Boise. That's where the trial's happening right now that we're obsessing over. He's going to Moscow. So yeah,
The scene of the
so
crime. Yeah.
the scene of the crime. They had a big hearing yesterday. I didn't hear the outcome of the hearing today, but there's all this blah 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 about taking the trial out of Moscow because it's such a tiny, it's a cute little town. Everything I've heard about it was great except for the
Mm-hmm.
murders.
It's where the
Sorry.
University of Idaho is, correct?
Yep,
That's right.
exactly.
The
And so
Vandals.
there you go. Wow. Yeah.
The what?
The reason why the
Vandals?
jazz competition
The
is there
Idaho
is
Vandals.
because yeah, it's a great name. I love that. Yeah, but the reason why the jazz competition is there is because one of their most storied alumni is Lionel Hampton, who was a famous jazz vibraphone player, and he, eventually donated a lot of money to the school to like I think it's like the Lionel Hampton School of Jazz, at the university, and they host this festival every year, this competition for like grade school jazz groups to come and play, not like your college or professionals, but like actual K through 12 groups to come out and perform and get evaluated and stuff like that. So it's actually like the biggest grade school jazz festival I think in the entire country. So really excited about that. And also there was a horrific crime that happened there that true crime people know all about. So
Oh.
we were told to not talk about it to the kids because I don't think they know about it yet. So it's like, this
No,
is
it's
not something they
just
need to be aware of.
no. And the only reason I kind of wanted to give Maddie the heads up is because you might hear about it while you're there, or they might get exposed to like a poster, or because there's still a lot of things going on regarding the, fundraising and awareness
Right.
and whatnot. Yeah. So, and there might be a lot of media in town right now. There's a lot of arguments going on, pre-trial stuff. So.
Oof. Good times.
So there's a lot of media following this is a super, I don't know how else to say it, popular crime. It's like
Yeah. Popular crime. People love this crime. It's a great one. It's pirating DVDs.
It's kind of
That's
weird.
a very
It's
popular
kind of
crime.
weird. Yeah. Well, part of it was too that the person who they now have in jail, who's accused of and arrested for committing it, still, not proven guilty yet, not convicted yet. But they didn't have him for a couple of months, and so everyone was kind of living in fear. And I think that added to the mystique and the weirdness, and the concern. And it is a college town, so there were all these college kids there without a lot of supervision that were very afraid because of what happened. So yeah, it was scary. Okay, guys, any final thoughts before we wrap her up on that happy note?
Well, thanks for having me. I check the audio version of the show out very, very frequently, and so I always appreciate getting a shout out here and there, and really makes my day. And so being a guest is always an honor and privilege. So thanks so much for that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. We absolutely love the stuff you do and the Pack a Day and everything else. So, keep up the good work, man. And
We love it.
yeah. Otherwise, any final thoughts, Don? I would just say we are in the best part of the draft season itself, where everything's kind of coming to a head and everyone's kind of like talking about the stuff. And if you've been paying some attention, you've got a better sense of who the I always want to say characters, who the recruits, the prospects are, who these people are. You have a better sense of like who they are as people and like where they kind of stack up and stuff like that. So like I feel like it's really the best part of it. So just soak it in, folks, because pretty soon it'll be to the really boring part of the year for the NFL. So this is the time to really get in. Definitely.
Right. We've got the draft, and then we have to, like, all the spring training and stuff will start, but there's not going to be a game until preseason August. So we've got a few months here. This is it until then, but it's exciting. I'm excited. I'm ready to cram.
There you go.
I'm ready to cram. I just downloaded my draft guide, and I have to download the beats next. So I'm
Just dig
excited.
into it.
It's official. The mock draft is going on for the listeners of the Pack a Day podcast. So it's all happening now. So
It's all
it feels
happening.
more real. All
right, Dom.
Thank you again, Andrew, for joining us. It's super, super great to have you back and enlightening us all on how to think about the draft and have more fun with it, because that's what it's all about.
That's right.
Yeah.
My
All right,
privilege.
hey, let's bring her home.
All right. Well, of course, folks, make sure you're following Andrew on Twitter. You can find him at Andrew Mertig. It's, you know how to spell Andrew. Mertig is Mertig. So, one of my favorite follows. I'll just say it, man. I'm not saying because you're here, but like for real. So, good dude. And friends, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all of the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right, because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your support, subscriptions, and sharing our pod, and we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.